When I thought about where my sadness stemmed from, there was only really one place. A room that I barely lingered in, if I didn't need to. It had been that way for... well... it was the room where I was told what had happened. It's the room where the front doors never closed, which would give me anxiety. Most of the time when I went for a walk, it was to get out of the house, just down the street, and rarely in the wilderness like this. Dean had driven me out to a big garden before, and we'd walked around together, but that was just something to do, right? Then there was Tyson and the occasional trips down to the beach. I had a lot of great memories despite being told constantly not to eat ice cream inside the car. I looked around at the trees before glancing back at the house. If I wandered further in, maybe I could have some time alone, right? There was always a risk, for sure, but much like what happened with Roswell, I could end up out there, but was that really bad? Was spending a night in the woods all that bad? I don't know, you guys are all covered in fur, so that's one of the biggest problems out of the way. If I wasn't around, I couldn't be hurt by what the vault showed me. I wouldn't have to look at my friends looking at me funny. Was it pity? Disappointment? I didn't really know. Trudging into the forest, I left them all behind. I could hear the sound of running water after a while of walking. I couldn't say just how long I'd been walking, but eventually I arrived at a river. The water was clear, the sound of it oddly calming and taking the edge off. Someone had mentioned this, but at the moment I couldn't remember who exactly had told me about it. Taking a look around, it seemed as if I was totally alone. No fish in the river, no sounds of other animals or birds or anyone else nearby. It almost felt like I was the last one standing as I stood at the edge of this water, looking down at my reflection. Without the choking smell of chlorine, I sighed out and looked at the hyena staring back at me. My hands traced my cheeks, across my underbite to my nose. The way the water rippled makes me squint to make out the details. Shy of the fur color, I was the spitting image of my dad. It was a legacy that I wasn't sure I liked now. Looking at myself in the mirror was a harsh reminder of him gone, right down to being unable to smile at my reflection. I thought about if he was watching over me, and what hope that sentiment meant felt more like a curse weighing me down. Not through anyone else's fault but my own. Looking up at the river, it winded through the trees, cascading over a cliff off to the distance and further on. Where did the river start? Was there anything else out there? Wandering upstream, I figured I'd see where it went. Climbing up a steep incline near the waterfall, I dusted myself off and looked around for anything else that might have looked different. This threw me off a little bit because I thought he was starting a memory when he thought of his house. So I was caught off guard when I think we're just actually in the woods now. From what I could tell, this clearing by the river seemed to be a makeshift campsite. I wonder... There was a ring of stones placed somewhat in the middle of the clearing, with a large log sitting nearby, acting as a bench. Taking a seat, I looked around. It seemed nice enough, but a crisp breeze made me realize just how cold it could get out here late at night. I closed my eyes and breathed in deep, the fresh air helping clear my head a little bit. But with a clear mind, thoughts came rushing in to fill the space, making me think of home.
Come on, sport.
Where are we going? Dad puffed out his chest, hands on his hips proudly.
Don't want an adventure with your old man?
Always, Dad.
Good. And buckle up, because we're gonna get something awesome to eat when we get there.
Is Mom coming?
Not this time, bud. She's at work.
It almost seems like she never wants to come out with us anymore. I sighed, hopping into the car and closing the door before buckling myself in. Dad tapped on the window, indicating for me to lower it.
Why long face, bucko?
Because this feels like a Silent Hill ending. And the reveal is that my parents are getting divorced. Fidgeting in my chair, I tried to keep my eyes anywhere than his as he stuck his head through the window slightly to look at me properly, fishing for an answer. No reason, I guess.
Seems like there might be one.
You won't get mad at me, right?
No matter what. But what's got you down?
I'm bi. Mom still loves me too, right?
What?
It was enough to make him recoil and hit his head on the roof of the car as he pulled back in shock.
What would make you think that?
Of course she doesn't. Just grammatically, the implication is worrying. Mom still loves me, right? What would make you think that? Just, she's barely home, and I don't really remember the last time she smiled at me. Did I do something wrong?
Don't you ever think we don't love you, David. You did nothing wrong, I promise.
He had his serious tone going, staring me down. I'm sorry. Dad sighed out, running his hands through his fur before wandering around the car and jumping in the driver's seat and buckling himself in. We didn't leave the driveway. Instead, his fingers just drummed on the steering wheel. It was the only sound we had, as he hadn't even started the car, and when he stopped, I turned to look at him. He just smiled at me. Maybe it was a brave face or something else I couldn't say. I remembered what he said next, or at least the individual words, but for the life of me I couldn't remember specifically how it sounded. I love you. As I opened my eyes, the campsite came back into view. The world around me hadn't changed outside, the faint sounds of nature now being somewhere I was more aware of. Had it all just been drowned out as I lost myself in my head, or... Yeah, that's the thing that happens every 10 minutes for you, apparently. You didn't notice someone getting punched in the face, and also didn't ask who did it afterwards. You just lived with that mystery for 24 hours. In a daze, my eyes looked to the water as I sat on the log, watching it flow steadily downstream. Sal crossed my mind briefly, and I felt guilty where my mind was going, and I was thankful I didn't have to face him. I wondered what would happen if I drowned right here, if this was the place I died. I wondered if it would hurt, or if some miracle would come along and stop it from happening. I wondered why the idea didn't scare me as much as it probably should have. Was I a coward? Selfish? Probably. Of all the places to choose, at least here was peaceful. It would solve all my problems in one go. My sadness, my stress and guilt. I'd be able to see my dad again, hopefully. I don't think that's even how that works if you believe in afterlives, usually. I think there's usually a very specific anti-suicide clause built in.
Yep.
Before I knew it, I was standing up and slowly walking towards the water's edge. My feet felt heavy, but my chest felt light. I wasn't having trouble breathing, but each breath rattled out of my barely parted mouth. My sinuses are clogged. Step by step, I got closer, not breaking stride once, with my eyes locked on a spot somewhere in the middle of the river. Before I could second guess if I was going to follow through on falling into the water, I stepped onto something solid but smooth, enough to make me look down to see what it was. Is it the fucking metals? I swear to God. What's... I looked at what I'd picked up, rolling it over in my hand. A thick glass syringe. That's not what I expected. With its needle capped off by some sort of plastic thing at the end. Had it been used? Why was it out here? In the sunlight, I caught a glint of something half buried underneath some fallen leaves, and now, distracted from what I was originally doing, I went to investigate. So suicidal intrusive thoughts that are easily counteracted by ADHD. Got it. Kneeling down, he's done. He just moved on from that moment. Just like that.
He's over it.
Like, what a fucking record scratch. I'm wondering if this is because we've already hypothesized early on that Roswell's dying of something. Yeah. And given that Roswell and Oz look similar, they might be related. So I was wondering if this is like some kind of death game that somehow is meant to save Roswell in a Kane sort of way.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And so now when Roswell went out to get truffles and disappeared out there, I wonder if he was shooting up. Like if he had something that he needed to take, which is a little silly because he should be perfectly capable of secretly taking stuff at the mansion, but I guess maybe it was that he has it on him at all times and he got stuck out here, so he had to use a syringe out here and then discarded it, which is a bad way to use a syringe, Roswell. Why wouldn't you just put it back in whatever you're keeping it in? Don't discard needles at the riverbank so that it can become evidence for Dave to foreshadow your condition. That's bad needle. That's very thanks for breaking glass where my kids play. From my favorite line from Without a Paddle. A movie that people remember still. That was, for some reason, a family favorite. We watched it way too much. And I just always think of that one quote where they fucking christen the boat with a bottle. And it's like, all right, shitty move.
I just kind of remember it as a movie that played on HBO a lot.
It had Seth Green. Is that the right Seth? Hang on a minute. Yes.
Yes.
Kneeling down, I picked up what that was. That's a weird sentence. Assuming another needle, but instead found a bottle. You should know what it is before you pick it up.
You should look where you're walking.
It's probably
it seems
a needle.
like
I'll
that
just
could
reach
be a problem.
for it. Oh, it's not a needle. What a wacky surprise. I was expecting a needle, which is why I reached for it without having a clear idea what it was. A safe thing to do with needles. So it's a bottle. Small, unassuming outside of the label, and neatly printed on the front. Rip talk. The first word was long, and I wasn't sure exactly how to pronounce it. The second word I'd heard before, some sort of illness that Mom had mentioned once, I think. With an item in each hand, I looked between the two. The bottle was empty, and the foil seal on the top punctured. The needle, while capped, still had what looked to be condensation inside. A few moments later, I yelped, and quickly dropped both, drawing a conclusion I didn't want to believe. Did someone inject themselves here? Or did someone else inject another person? The only person I knew to be out here was Roswell. But that thing that was following me, was that out here? Could that have been part of this? The thing that was following me. What's following him?
I don't remember anything following him.
Yeah, I don't know what he's referring to.
Didn't he have a feeling that he was being watched or something? I thought that was just Oz.
He might have had
way back earlier in the game.
I think he might have had a brief moment of thinking someone was yeah, I think it was when he rushed back.
Yeah.
On his second walk, where he reached all the way to the cliff, when on his way back, I think he thought someone was following him, and he hurried to the mansion or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now he's out here alone again because he makes great choices, just fantastic choices. I get that you can't pronounce it, Dave, but why don't we get to hear what it says? You still read it. So, you're being a weirdly, not irredeemable, unreliable narrator here. I picked both up and put them in my pocket carefully. And then I dropped them again. It'd help remind me to ask Roswell about it later, because I don't have object permanence. If he knew anything about it, now that I'd found something out here where he spent the night. My mind raced with what it all meant, and I looked around again. My resolve and focus on going into the river was shot, and likely for the better. But instead, it was replaced with curiosity, and I headed upstream. Look at how many locations are out here. I lost track of how long I walked, but it was in no hurry, taking occasional breaks to look around the trees. Something gave me the impression that I was being watched. That happens so much, apparently. So here's the murderer house. Here's the house where the murderer is staying. There's just a whole house out here. There's so many places the murderer could be. They don't even have to be in the walls. Which means that maybe they shot up Roswell to put them to sleep, to not be found or something. I don't know. That's a little logistically nonsensical compared to what I said already.
Yeah.
Before me, sitting right around the water's edge, was a rundown mill. Moss and vines seeming to have claimed the place after many years of no use. Just like before, the place seemed quiet and serene. I would have said that it felt like I was truly alone if the feeling that I was being watched didn't get stronger the longer I stood out in the open. Is anyone here? Carefully looking around, I called out quietly. Silence. Nothing but silence to answer my question. I didn't really want to go inside the mill. After all, who knows what could have been in there, or if I wouldn't accidentally step on a loose floor panel and get trapped. Loose floor panel? Do you think the mill has a basement? If I was, it was a reminder that I didn't tell anyone where I was going, but I only had myself to blame. That buddy system lasted like 12 hours. I couldn't get angry about them not coming to save me because I didn't give them the chance. Did you leave your cell phone again? You guys have cell phones, and then forget about them most of the time. Not only that, but when I got back, I had no excuse for them to be mad at me for being a hypocrite yet again. I slumped my shoulders and sighed, leaning up against one of the beams, holding up a trough up above. Braced against something, I whined out, my troubles making me hesitate and turning back now. My ears perked at the sound of a twig snapping, and I looked around, eyes darting around the trees for the source. I heard it again. Out in the open, the sound echoed around me, and it was hard to place exactly where it had come from. It echoed? In the forest? Being out in the open left me exposed, and I felt it now. Deciding that heading inside might not be the worst idea, all things considered. Now this is where it would echo. Inside the mill was dirty, and much like the outside, nature had claimed most of it. Yep, yeah, look at all that nature claiming it. Completely reclaimed by nature. Walls were cracked, but the stonework held together despite the vines growing through a hole in one of the walls. Looking behind me to see if I was being followed, I ducked behind the doorway to try and stay out of sight. Not that it'd help if I'd already been spotted. Reaching inside my pocket, I held onto the syringe, reminding myself that I had something in the way of a weapon, just in case things went sour. It didn't look like there were any abandoned tools nearby that would make for a better option anyway. I heard another twig snap, followed by someone calling out. Who the fuck is this?
Yeah. Huh.
Huh. Huh?
Yet another character.
Huh.
You want to do this?
What voices do I have? Hello? Someone out there? The voice had a tinge of amusement to it. Somewhat squeaky, too, so I could rule out being any of my friends. Even Oswin and Benson didn't have a voice that matched that.
visual novel authors, please, in the future, be reader friendly and describe the voice before we hear it, please. Thank you.
Think of the poor Let's Players.
Think of the poor Let's Players, please.
It's even more frustrating in Final Fantasy XIV, where it'll constantly do question mark dialogue that refers to a character entering the room, but it's someone they've met before, almost every single time. So, like, people recognize voices in real life, so you could just say who it is in that game. It's not like a new character reveal like it probably is here, because they're gray. Peering around the corner, I couldn't see anything. No sign of whoever it was that was also out there. They kept calling, asking where I was hiding, but it seemed like they weren't making any effort to get closer. I weighed up, heading further into the mill in an effort to hide, as leaving would just let whoever was calling out find me, right? The person who I just called out to, but now don't want to see? What is this place? It's got like a... season 1 Doctor Who reboot filter going on. Like, it's got that blurry bloom that made the early seasons really ugly, even though they were kind of better. It grew colder as I ventured further in, and it seemed like I was heading more underground too. The air was stable down here, and there were half-broken slabs of concrete mixed up with the flooring. Large pipes and machines seemed to be everywhere, all powered by the water wheel outside. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Or if it was powered by anything else, I couldn't see a generator. There was something about this place that made me feel odd. The ceiling was high up above, jagged pieces of metal jutting out at odd angles, and the ceiling, from a ceiling where they'd just rusted and fallen apart over time. We've also got that, like, lack of continuity VN background thing going on that makes this place eerie, because this place seems too big on the inside. So it feels like he's wandered into, like, a fucking Fear and Hunger dimension. How deep did this place go underground? What was it for? Lumber? Like some kind of mill? Off to the side there seemed to be a chute for something to drop down from the level above and onto a conveyor belt that ran along one side of the wall. At the end was a saw blade, ready to cut whatever was sent down the path to it. There was something about this place I couldn't quite place. It wasn't sadness, but a feeling of unease that came from within. Familiar in a way, but I couldn't place how. Hello? There was that voice again, smug and amused as before, but now closer. The voice echoed through the building, and I backed up against one of the large metal chambers that dotted the room I was in. Footsteps. Light, but somewhat clumsy, maybe. But it wasn't what stuck out to me. As good as my nose was, I couldn't smell them at all. Nothing to distinguish who they could be or anything. Was it because of the air in here? Straining my ears, I listened as they moved around, searching for me. They could have been friendly for all I knew, but something about this just seemed like bad news. Their footsteps sounded like they got closer before stopping entirely, gripping the syringe tightly and waiting. And waited. I let out a breath that I didn't realize I'd been holding. Figured that I must have just misheard them leaving. Goofy rabbit?
Alright, there's another character.
There's just a goofy rabbit. There's a goofy shirtless rabbit. They disabled the back button. That's cheating. I can't go back. There's a goofy white rabbit in a headband and no shirt and probably jorts. The shock
Not the jorts rabbit.
Not the jorts rabbit. That's his name now until replaced.
Jorts.
The shock made me fall over and I hit my head hard as I landed, passing out. Anyway, for 1 second I missed it because I went too fast, but they said boo. And then Dave died of shock apparently.
He just collapsed like a goat.
Yeah. When I came to, I was back outside. It seemed darker, but I wasn't sure exactly how long it had been out for. He just fainted and the rabbit dragged him outdoors? That just seems weird. I was only half certain of what I'd seen before falling over and sat up, groaning. I'm gonna give this guy Titus's voice. So that's what he has Titus vibes off of the 0.2 seconds I saw him.
What's that actor's name? Fucking something.
I don't know his name.
ATJ are his initials. He voices fucking Obi-Wan in Clone Wars.
Does he?
Yeah.
Titus's voice.
James Arnold Taylor, JAT. He voices Titus as well.
Is he canceled?
And Johnny Test
How are
and
voice
Ratchet
actors
and
doing
Clank.
these
Ratchet
days?
from Ratchet and Clank or something. I don't know.
Oh, he voices Ratchet. A game I haven't played. I was only half certain of what I'd seen right before falling over and sat up, groaning. Quickly checking my pockets, it seemed as though I had everything still, much to my relief. I keep almost planning on making a tabletop RPG character that's like a very plucky JRPG protagonist, like optimist character, and then I keep not doing that character. Like, to the point where I would like plan that character, then show up the day of, and then make another gruff antisocial dude. So, look forward to that. I'll pick the darkest campaign setting we do, and then play the most positive, upbeat character, and we'll just watch him get punched in the face. My head was still spinning, but I seemed unharmed outside of my tumble, and I let myself properly get my bearings. Whoever that was I ran into didn't seem to be around right now, and I wobbled to my feet as I stood. How late is it? About 6. Whoa. I fell over again, landing on my rear and yelping as I nursed my tail. What? You got curfew? No, I mean, who? Where?
This is gonna sound weird, but this character like looks the most furry out of all of the cast so far. Like, looking at his character design, I'm just like, yeah, Furry drew this. Like, this is someone's persona.
Yeah.
It just immediately reads as Rabbit.
No, he's literally wearing the same clothes as my persona.
Yes.
He's wearing a fucking hoodie vest with the ripped off sleeves and gray shorts, which is literally how Marrow dresses.
Unbelievable.
And the number of characters that have, like, some combination of, like, incomplete tops being worn, like exposed chest or, like, open shirt, or a shirt that just never does cover everything, from, like, a open vest to a crop top to torn sleeves. Like, this is a furry OC. Extremely, yes. There's a lot going on here. Oh? Scare ya? Not gonna laugh on me, are ya? Not gonna laugh on me? What? That sound... It sounds extremely Australian, but I don't know what it means. I'm not sure what that means. I think the slang has made it. I need to read more OTF or whatever it's called to catch up. Fuck, what's that the Australian furry comic?
No idea.
It's like, it's a 4-letter acronym that refers to remote work. And I don't mean like COVID remote work. I mean work in remote locations where you're housed in a camp for the work and are separated from your social connections for months to do it. Because that's the premise. It's a bunch of people that go off, and it's a bunch of dudes that go off and work at a remote, like, mining operation or some other thing that's going on in Australia, in, like, the remote inner continent, and then they fuck because there ain't no ladies around. So there's a combination of, like, the genuinely gay people that have emotional baggage over this trip versus the people that are basically straight but opportunistic in that they would like to fuck while they're there, and that kind of, and it's about navigating that mess. And it's a hard comic to remember the name of because I think it's just 4 letters, and that's not helpful. I guess I said that. I stared at the hair, unsure of what to make of things. Yeesh. Watching you has been a hoot, but I didn't think you'd be so flighty. Whoa. Whoa. I didn't think it'd be so flighty. More on edge than any other game out here, that's for sure. The game? Animals? Got it in one. This here's a death game. Did no one tell you? I'm 04. Didn't expect a hyena out here, though. It's turning less into Titus and more into Sonic because my nose is clogged. He gestured wide with his arms briefly before staring at me some more. What's your name, kid? Dave? What's a hyena like yourself doing this far out, huh? Just on a walk, I guess. A walk? On this mountain? Yeah? The hare whistled, looking around. Must be a long walk given you look like city folk. Does this guy not know about the mansion? Or did Dave dimension hop or something? Like, well, no, I'm the hare stared at me some more, waiting. Well, you couldn't just walk here from the city. My guess is you're one of those Hammond kids. Okay, so you're just being dumb. Got it. Me? No, I'm just staying there, I guess? His attitude seems to shift. Disappointment, maybe? It's hard to tell. Just a guest? Shame. Shame how? Well, getting in good with the rich folk is never a bad thing. Can't have one of their guests lost out in the woods now, can we? I'm not that lost, Mr. Oh, me? I'm nobody. But call me Jack. That's a face. He's making a face.
Yeah.
And his name sounds like a pseudonym, like a name you would make up for a rabbit when you don't want to use their real name.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
What an expression. This character's skeevy as fuck.
Yeah, I love this.
Jack? Okay. That smile he wore felt off somehow. So much so that when I smiled back, I felt like I'd done something wrong. Well then, Dave. You had a bit of a fall inside the mill, so I brought you out here. Only because you snuck up on me. Really now? Didn't think you'd scare so easy when you're out here by yourself. Didn't think a place as big as Hammond's would host only one guest at a time, either. Oh, it's not just me. Whole family of hyenas visiting? Well, I imagine that house would be full of laughs then. No, it's just me and some friends. Friends? It was almost as if the concept was foreign to him, with how thoughtful he seemed to be, after echoing what I'd said. Huh. Sounds fun. It's been something like that, in that there's been no fun. You kidding? A whole mansion and you ain't having fun? I groaned and slumped on the spot. There's been a lot going on back at the house. I probably shouldn't get into it. No? And why is that? You know the house, right? I mean, of course you do, because you know the name of the person that owns it, so... Oh, yeah. Plenty of stories about that place. Well, with all the murders, and child exploitation, and... There are stories? Sure is. Recluse lives
Dave,
there.
You should know this. Like, he told you.
Yeah. Recluse lives there now with his butler. Smart as a whip, and occasionally gets a visitor every now and then. Not much of a story. Well, that's not the story. The story is he's got a machine in his basement. You wouldn't happen to have seen it given you live in there, have you? Oh, you mean... I caught myself before I said anything more, noticing Jack's eyes light up the moment I trailed off. So it does exist. Well, that's nice to hear, given what I know about it. You've heard about it too? I've been told about it, sure. Hard not to remember a talk of a time machine someone's built. It wasn't a time machine, was it? Is that what the door hadn't opened? Was Oswin just lying about it? With how funny Jack was being, I was leaning towards believing what Osmond had said about it. Well, maybe I should see if I could get it working when I get back at the house next. If you ever get there. That's threatening. What? Do you know your way back? Reckon you're stuck without a guide. Oh, I'm sure I could figure it out. I'll just head back down the river until I find something familiar and then wander back from there. River doesn't go anywhere near the house. You'd end up getting to a waterfall at a sheer cliff before you get back to the city, too. It's not that bad, is it? You're welcome to find out. What about you? Why are you even out here? Just hunting. A normal thing to say in this context where you're suspecting someone's a murderer. After all, there are some big mountains and there's nothing like being out where no one else is around to bother you. I'm sorry if I bothered you then. I'm just figured the mill was something neat to look at. No bother. Wondered who was wandering around out here. You sure you're fine to be heading back to the house by yourself? Yeah, I'll be fine. Thanks. Something wasn't right. Stranger danger was a thing that I'd been taught as a kid, which mostly didn't pan out because it was an era where statistically most kidnappings were done by people that you knew. Whoops. And it didn't really sink in until now as to what that meant. What? What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
You were taught a stranger danger as a kid, but it never sank in, so you never actually, until now, when you're an adult, are considering stranger danger?
I mean, I get it. I get the idea of, like, stranger danger being a problem and, like, never being in a position where strangers were actually dangerous. Like, I get that. That makes sense.
Sure. It's a weird thing to say when we already have a narrative context to be worried about strangers, to be like, yes, as a kid I was worried about strangers. I'm like, sir, there's a dead body. That's why you should be worried about strangers. You've literally been suspecting one of your friends was a murderer, so meeting someone new out here gives you, if anything, a relief that it might be them, but also the danger that you're with them right now and should be getting out of here. And your thought process not going straight to that is weird. Just a weird lack of connection to the basic events of the story, to being like, oh, I was warned about strangers as a kid.
Yeah. Completely.
I was getting an off feeling about Jack. Something's jacked up about him. Something about how he moved and talked and even stood there was, as time went by. You don't know your way back, Dave. I'll figure it out. You hit your head pretty hard, Dave. Maybe I should take you back to where I'm staying so you can rest. No, I'm good, really. I took a couple steps back, shooting him a wry smile. It wasn't at all convincing, but I didn't want to turn my back to him either. You at least want me to point you in the right direction? You know where the house is? General location, sure. Wouldn't be much of a hunter if I couldn't navigate this forest now. Now would I? Without me asking, he pointed in the direction away from the river, through the trees. Head that way. Terrain might be a little harder, but that's the direction the house is in. Got a long walk ahead of you, though. I chanced to look in the direction he pointed out before looking back at him. Thanks. Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna head back to my own little hidey hole, I think. Safe travels, Dave. Stop saying it like that. Why is he doing that? Why is this acting suspicious on purpose?
Yeah, so there's two things here. Either it's a complete red herring and he's just a weirdo and we're supposed to believe he's the killer but not. Or the story is now the hills have eyes and we have scary wood hill people coming for us. Yeah. It's just like, all right. Guess this is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre now.
I mean, I would have fun if they introduced a cult on top of a death rat. Like, just go weird with it, honestly. If anything, the first 10 days I've desperately needed more weird stuff to crop up sooner, because it's just a bunch of friends not being social with each other.
Yeah.
I watched as he turned on heel and wandered off, disappearing out of sight in the opposite direction to where I was headed. sighing out, I took a longer look at where I needed to go. Jack had the right of it, and that I had no idea where I was. Best I could do was head down the river until I found the camp and go from there, right? He immediately ignores Jack's advice, which is probably good, because he didn't want to go to Jack's house, and he might have just pointed you there, honestly. Rather than cutting through the trees, I figured I'd wander back down river and keep in mind the direction he'd pointed out to me. I didn't really want to have a difficult walk ahead of me if I could avoid it. My stomach rumbled, now feeling a little hungry. It's what I got for not eating for almost 2 days now. He still didn't have breakfast? Dave! Dave! You didn't eat for 2 days, then just had a coffee. Oh, I'm upset. And then you wandered into the woods? It's like he's trying to die.
It's a problem.
This is how I behaved in Zomboid when I decided it was time to give up and I just was dying on purpose.
Yeah.
What little I'd had just wasn't cutting it anymore. I wonder what's for dinner. I sat down on the log to catch my breath, knowing I still had a little while left to go before I got back to the house. My mind wandered back to those at the house, and I started to sink in how silly I had been just leaving like I did for the 3rd time in a row. They were probably worried, and the guilt returned to rid me of my appetite. This pattern is very, like, it's frustrating in like he's self-destructive in a way where these behaviors are very clearly repeating and very believable. Like, you can see exactly the mistake he's making, but he's also not like characterized in a Cameron sort of way where he's completely out of control of his faculties and like just flying off the handle with this stuff in an upsetting way. So it just makes him annoying. I'm just like, just tell people where you're going. Do the buddy system that you invented yourself. You said the buddy system and then keep not doing it. This is your 3rd time just wandering off into the woods / the road and not telling people. They'd be like, man, people are probably scared about me. I'm guilty now about that. I'm like, that's believable. Yeah. It's self-inflicted. You're doing this to yourself over and over again. Yeah. And also, you made people feel guilty when you got back and no one was there, but you keep doing that even both before and after. Both after that happened and after you invented the buddy system. I'm just losing my entire mind. Why is your first response every time that a murderer is established to wander off alone? It's just, I'm begging you. Well, we'll see Dave go back to his friends and process his guilt again next episode, I'm sure. and it will have been completely preventable, and I'll lose my mind again.